Did my mother-in-law move to just no territory yesterday, or am I just a bad person? 2020 has been really rough on my family. I have a husband and 2 kids. My husband worked in a school and got laid off permanently when COVID struck and the schools closed down. We couldn't afford to make ends meet. Roughly at the same time, my husband's mother began contacting him after years of no contact. She had just gotten out of an abusive relationship, the main reason according to her that she didn't talk to my husband because the guy she was with was isolating her from her own kids, and she was living all alone in a big house and didn't want to be alone. When my husband told her that he lost his job and we were struggling, she told us in her words, "Things happen for a reason. Come live with me." We all talked and agreed it was time to take a risk, and my husband began filling out applications for jobs in the state his mother was in. Right before lockdown started, we packed as much as could, put them into storage, and left for his mother's place. She acted ecstatic we were there. Tried loving up my kids and trying to teach me family recipes and getting to know me better. I've been married to my husband for 10 years now, and she never really bothered to beforehand. I thought this was working wonderfully. I tried earning my keep by cleaning her house, and fixing stuff for her, cooking, etc. The stuff she couldn't do because she worked all the time. My husband offered to pay rent, but my mother-in-law wouldn't have it and told him to save his money instead so he can buy himself a house. Let me tell you, all these good times lasted maybe 4 to 5 months. My husband's first job wasn't enough to live off of, so he switched from one job to another until he found one that federal and paid him enough, and has been there since. We, unfortunately, had debt from the time he was jobless that we needed to pay off first before saving for a house. I'm currently not working because my children's school keeps going from remote learning to in-person, and when I asked my mother-in-law if she could maybe try to see the kids on the bus in the morning so I can work somewhere, she told me not to expect much from her because she likes to sleep in and doesn't like babysitting. We tried keeping her informed of everything that was happening, and every time we tried she would brush it off and say things like, "Ain't no one rushing you out, don't worry, who will take care of my dogs once you leave? I don't want to be alone anyways, please just take your time," but at the same time her words didn't reflect her actions. She would get snippy with my kids and yell at them to be quiet. We weren't allowed to try to train or discipline her dogs, and they bark nonstop some days. They get food off counters and tables, knock down trash cans to get the food inside, chew up toys, give warning nips to my kids. She went from smoking only outside to smoking in her room, even though her room shared a wall with my kids' room. My kids' room would fill up with smoke. And when my husband would politely bring anything up, she'd get upset at him. When I'd cook for everyone and offer her some, she'd always eye my food like it was the grossest thing she ever saw. But she'd never cook or clean or do anything for herself. She would vegetate all day long in her room, then grab her keys and go eat takeout. We told her all we are waiting for is our income taxes to come by early April of this year, literally 1 month away, and we are going to combine it with the little savings we have and see if we can do a first-time homeowner's loan. I even sat with her one day to show her our budget and houses on Zillow we could afford. Just because I felt like she was my friend and I wanted to share things that made me happy with her. When one day around early February, she went to her room, grabbed a hamper full of her clothes, and said because of the snowy weather conditions she was going to be staying at her brother's place, which was closer to her job. That one day turned into the whole week. That whole week turned into a whole month, over a month, and it's March and she's still there at her brother's. She stopped by the other day and I asked her how she was and that the roads were clear now. She told me she was staying with her brother because since he's a widower and got custody of his granddaughter, he needed help. I thought that was really nice of her. We offered to start paying all of the rent since she's going to be staying there, but like always she says not to worry about it because she earns a lot, and it's only for a little bit of time. When we told her we wanted to just rent instead of saving for a house, she'd go on a rant about how owning a home is better and that we better buy instead of rent. Cut to last night. I was invited by my mother-in-law's brother to a kids' play place so his granddaughter can play with my kids. My husband didn't go because he had work. I get along with my mother-in-law's brother for the most part, so I said okay. He picked us up and we drove there together. When I got there, my mother-in-law's friend was there as well. They get to talking and it's pleasant until they bring up my mother-in-law. Her brother says, "Well, Jenna here and my sister got beef with each other," and laughs. I honestly got really taken back and asked him, "Wait, we do?" He told me that the reason my mother-in-law doesn't return to her home is that she hates me and that apparently I hate her too. She's been telling them two sob stories that I stole her son from her, how her son won't talk to her, and that there can't be two women running a household, it doesn't work. How would you feel if some woman shows up and takes your son from you? While pointing to my freakin' 9-year-old. And that she doesn't know when we plan on leaving and feels like she got kicked out of her own home. I told them both that I was completely unaware of any of this. And that she never communicated any of this to us, that she told me she left to help raise the uncle's granddaughter for a bit, and they continued to ramble about how it's still our fault that she feels the need to lie. How she's really upset and that we need to get moving. They were both really loud and the parents around the center had all their eyes and ears on them and then at me. It was humiliating. Listen, I suffer from anxiety and I felt the room was spinning after a while of this. I shook my head and went to go get a drink of water, my hands were shaking. I messaged my husband telling him that that entire night they planned was an ambush. That both his uncle and her mom's friend cornered me and began defending his mom and telling me I needed to leave the house as soon as possible because his mother hates me. Unfortunately, he still had to work for 2 more hours, so for those 2 hours I had to awkwardly sit with these two as they took turns chatting and laughing and mockingly asking me, "How are you holding up, Jenna? Don't worry, we'll get you home eventually." Knowing I was clearly upset. When my husband finally showed up, we left and I blocked the uncle from my phone. I literally cried hard last night after my kids went to bed and told my husband that I thought they were all my friends, but in reality, they don't like me because they think I'm hurting his mom and we needed to leave ASAP. Even my husband got emotional because he began reminiscing about all the stuff she's done to him and how she has the cojones to blame their strained relationship on me. He said his mother's always been that way. She likes to victimize herself and turn people against other people, and that's why he thought twice about reconnecting with her and why none of her other kids talk to her. The thing is, are those two right though? The uncle and her friend, I mean. I couldn't sleep last night and laid in bed for hours. I told my husband a part of me feels like a bad person. I was raised in a toxic household, so I tend to blame myself for pretty much everything and felt bad that it affected me so much last night to the point where I refused to socialize after they cornered me and sat there embarrassed. I can't stop feeling intense hatred for his mom now. But I don't feel justified. My mother-in-law pretended she was my friend and family, turns out she doesn't think I'm neither to her. It hurts like hell and I kind of hate her now. Is she a just no mill, or am I just a bad person? Who is in the wrong? So my husband's mother began calling and messaging my husband to go help his uncle with furniture he was apparently being given for free. My husband said no to her via text and she replied that he was being rude. We were passing by my husband's uncle's house on our way home and he saw his mom's car there, so my husband angrily pulled in. He told her about what had happened and how we weren't aware she had such bad feelings towards me and how she doesn't have to worry because we were planning on leaving soon. I just played with the cat because I honestly didn't even want to talk to her and kinda wished my husband and I wasn't there. A part of me weirdly enough missed her and I wish I wasn't mad at her. Like I really missed her, which then ended up with me feeling hurt all over again. My mother-in-law began what I guess I can describe as a fake shock. She was like, "She said that? How could she? That's just despicable. You're a grown man with kids. I don't think anyone stole you from me." I then told her from the other room, "And I don't hate you." Then she changed the topic about something going on with her heart and how she might need surgery. My husband listened some more, then told her we had to leave because we had a house to look at. On my way out she goes, "Believe me, if I hated you, you'd know it." So that's about it. Today her brother texted me because it's his granddaughter's birthday on the weekend. I really don't want to go, but don't want to be mean to that little girl because she really loves my kids. It's not her fault the adults in her life suck. But I'm scared I'll need a ride there. We currently just have one car because our other car broke down. The funny thing is I'm pretty sure what we talked about with mother-in-law made no impact whatsoever on her relationship with her best friend. We saw her best friend's car parked outside the uncle's house yesterday and again today. The three of them are still hanging out. If she truly doesn't hate me and her best friend lied to me, I'd like to think she'd be mad and not want to see her best friend for a while. But nope. Anyhow, life kind of still sucks. And I got a feeling it'll feel like this until we leave, but house hunting in the area we are in is harder than I thought. If the houses aren't out of our price range, they have major issues. Mother-in-law moved back in about 3 days ago. She never said why, she just showed up with all her stuff and went straight to her room. At one point I needed to get past her room to get to the bathroom, and she told me to come into her room. She told me angrily that we need to start paying her rent and electricity. I told her we wanted to before, but she said no, so I don't understand why she's asking so upset, like as if we have been refusing to. She goes, yeah well, I should have accepted it before. Then changes the topic and tells me she needs to go see a cardiologist because she might need heart surgery again. See, here's the thing with her. She's already had 2 heart attacks. They told her to change her habits and stop eating greasy fast food and quit smoking. She refuses. Then acts surprised when her heart doesn't suddenly act as it should. Anyways, since I noticed she was scared, I asked her if she wanted me to go with her. She said, okay. The rest of the day went fine. She watched television with the kids and even seemed to enjoy their company, which is always nice because they love her. I offered her the food I made, but like always she took one look at it, walked past with her car keys, and left to get some fast food. Later on, my husband noticed she was home. They were talking again about what happened and I hear her go, I was feeling unwelcome in my own home. Oh, I guess her friend wasn't lying then. The second day, she was at work, so I barely saw her. Fast forward to yesterday, day 3. I went with my husband in the morning to see a house that's for sale. We loved it. It's small and not really much to look at, but just enough for us. We told the realtor we wanted it and filled out paperwork in order to put in our bid for it, and hoping to hear back from them by Monday. We went home and my husband then grabbed his backpack and headed to work. My mother-in-law woke up and right off the bat looks like someone spit in her Cheerios. And she barks, did the dogs go out? I told her I took them out after I managed to get the kids on the school bus. She said, you're supposed to do it as soon as you wake up. I rolled my eyes and let her run her mouth. She took the dogs out, then went back in and asked where my husband was. I told her he went to work. Then I told her I think we found a house, probably shouldn't have. But I just wanted to make conversation. She said, cool, and that's about it. Then I got a phone call from her brother. Turns out I needed to take care of his granddaughter. Apparently, I had agreed to it forever ago and forgot. Okay, it's fine, it's just the little girl. I heard a knock, and as soon as the door opened, the 3-year-old goes, are you still mad at my granddad? What the heck? I told her no, I'm not mad. He awkwardly gives me her things and says he's off. Mother-in-law was passing by, saw the little girl, and her demeanor changes entirely. She scooped her up and talks to her, baby talking to her, showing her enthusiasm, such she never shows her own grandkids. I asked her, why does your brother think I hate him? She goes, they think you hate them. I go, but why? Because you didn't help him that day with the furniture. We were looking at houses, I said. Yeah well, I told them what you said about that day. What she failed to mention to them was that I was mad at her for starting it all. So they think I just hate them for no reason, like a crazy person. Today is the day of the party. It's in a park. My husband told me last night he can't be here because his job needed him, but he'll try to leave early. Lord, help me, because I'm going to ask this woman if she wants to take my kids to the party. Her brother mentioned it to the kids before he left and got them all excited, so I can't just not let them go. I know a lot of people were concerned that she'd tell my kids something if they were alone. But before this all happened, I had left them with her and she'd never treat them bad or tell them anything. Because I've taught my kids from early that they need to tell me if a grown-up talks to them about their parents. In any case, we were in the driveway and hubby was there. His boss let him go last minute. He saw that the kids were leaving and insisted on taking them instead. His mother told him, I can take the kids there. Besides, I understand you don't want to see certain people. My husband told her, you mean the people you turned against us and now they are fighting us? No, I don't care who I see there. I just want to be with my kids." Then he motioned me to come to him smiling. I love this man. We took our kids there and there were extended family, cousins, aunts, etc. We greeted them all politely, gave the girl a present, and went to sit by the kids who were playing. I heard one person say, "I'm surprised they showed up," followed by laughter. We figured it would be like that. We didn't mind. We talked about things and were on our phones looking at funny things. There were more people like us looking awkward, like they didn't belong there. His mother looked worse than us, surprisingly. The uncle looked tied to the hip with best friend, and she apparently doesn't talk to her extended family? In any case, Mill somehow found her way to us and wanted to sit with us. We let her, and right off the bat she began making fun of some stranger sitting within eyesight of us, loudly thinking we were going to join her. We got up immediately and moved around, and she was there right with us, just following us around. I did manage to kind of shake her off enough to talk to my husband's cousin BC. My kids get along well with her kids. I really do like her, and she knows nothing about what's going on. She wants me to come along with her to her house for the kids to play. But here's the thing. Every single time now that I've gotten to see her, she's with my husband's uncle and mother-in-law's best friend. The best friend has literally taken on the mommy role to the little girl, and if I want my kids around their cousins, this woman is always there. I got a feeling soon enough husband's cousin won't like me once mother-in-law's bestie tells her all about me. Don't know if you remember when I said I'd take mother-in-law to her cardiologist appointment, which was for today? I woke up and there was her best friend on the driveway waiting for her. Without so much as telling me, she had called up her best friend to take her. I had been getting changed and ready to go with her, but I shrugged it off and started folding laundry instead. Her friend walked in and I heard them whispering in her bedroom. The best friend goes, "So what are they even doing?" My mother-in-law answered, "No, they're looking." Her best friend passed by me and gave me this shit-eating grin, saying, "Good morning." I go, "Mornin'." And off they went. We got outbid on the house we wanted. We are still looking in 5 different towns and none have houses within our budget. There were tons of them in the winter, but now, nothing. My husband's cousin never called me to set up a playdate the day she was planning to with me, and when I saw her Facebook, she apparently had the uncle with best friend there that day instead. I'm just exhausted and angry all the time. I know this can't be good for me. I know I was told by some to talk to her brother and set things straight, but I don't even think it's worth it at this point. Mother-in-law got what she wanted. I'm no longer friends with her family. My own family is out of state. I can't seem to make friends. I'm just isolated. Coming here was one of the biggest mistakes of my life. I want to move back to my own state, but there's nothing to move back to. I just have to keep waiting. Well, it finally happened. This woman broke me. I was making lunch when I heard her rummaging in her room for stuff and calling for me. Against my husband's advice to stop talking to her, I went in there and she was pointing to hampers full of clothes. She told me to take those things out to her car. She'll be helping out her brother for a while. I ignored the fact that she has taken to ordering me around without so much as a please, or a thank you, to ask her, "Is this the real problem, or is it that we are making you feel unwelcome again?" She stared at me and with a sheepish face began sputtering how it's not that and that her brother needs her, they got stuff to do, etc. I looked quietly at her and just stood there. She started on about how the brother's granddaughter has been asking about her and when she'll be back. And how much that little girl loves me and when I babysit her. How my daughter and her are going to grow up best friends, etc. I told her that it's awkward now and I doubt her brother's going to be letting me babysit her for much longer, since I'm someone who causes his sister, mother-in-law, so much stress and grief. She then goes, "No you don't. I love you." I shook my head, getting emotional, and said, "I did too, but things are awkward now, like really really awkward. You made people hate me by saying that I make you feel unwelcome in your own home, that I hate you, and you can't fix that." She's like, "She shouldn't have told you that stuff," referring to her best friend, and I go, "Well, people don't just confront other people like that unless they feel they got permission to, that they're helping their friend. And then after my husband confronted you about it, you go ahead and told them I'm mad at them for some reason when I wasn't. I was mad at you." She then goes, "Yeah. Don't try to fix what happened between you and my brother. They don't want to see you." You really shouldn't let things people say get to you next time, just not making any sense and contradicting the fact that she wants my kids to continue seeing that girl somehow. And that's when I lost it and started crying out of frustration. She knows I suffer from anxiety. I told her I can't wait to get the fuck out of here because I'm done with her and her craziness. She tried going for a hug, WTF, and I move away and she leaves. My husband, while this was happening, coincidentally at work found a place we can afford, called the Realtor, and we're going to see it tomorrow morning. I'm just sort of here right now and figured it wouldn't hurt to vent here, again. Okay, so I feel an update is in order. Ahem. We got a house. Despite being advised to settle for a rental, my husband told me to just please bear with living in mother-in-law's until a house opened up within our budget. And a perfect starter home did a few days ago. We scrambled over and saw it first thing in the morning, then made an offer and the owners accepted. Ah. So now it's the whole process of waiting for inspections, the bank, etc. In the meantime, I'm just so happy and relieved it'll all soon be over. So, my husband around 2 weeks back coincidentally ran into his sister. His sister looked so relieved and happy to see him. She had apparently been hoping to run into him because she knew we were living with her mother, but she didn't want to go to the house. She apparently completely cut off mother-in-law because her mom was doing the exact same things to her that she is doing to me. I couldn't believe my ears when we sat down to talk and she gave us an entire list of the things her mom did. Her mom told others that apparently her own daughter was hoarding food from her, not making her feel welcome in her own home, etc. All the things she is now accusing me of doing. Sister-in-law looked at me and while laughing goes, does she spend all day in her room and then when you make dinner refuse to eat it? Does she scream at your kids and tell them to shut up when they're just laughing and playing? Does she go to my uncle's house and then say that you're being mean to her? Does she tell people you're a drug addict? I said yes to everything minus the drugs part, that I know of. Who knows, maybe she's telling people that too. And she goes, yup. She likes to get people to turn against whoever is living with her. I've been done with her for a long time. She made us promise to please not tell her mom we are seeing each other and to not give out her address or phone number. We promised. So we've now been getting our kids and hers together for playdates in parks and in her home, soon in ours too once we're settled, and it's been lovely. My husband looks so happy, I can tell he secretly missed her. On Mother's Day, this woman, mother-in-law, had the cojones to show up after weeks of not seeing her face. She, honest to God, showed up a day before Mother's Day and then left a day after. She thought we were going to celebrate her and take her out, etc. It was so painfully obvious why she showed up, I can't believe it. My husband didn't acknowledge her but gave her rent money in an envelope and that was it. I can't wait for this all to be over. I'm happy but still pretty nervous. Heaven forbid anything goes wrong from now until we are finally gone. Our closing date for the house is coming up sometime this month. I wish I wasn't here still, but unfortunately things have to run their course, so I'm still at mother-in-law's house. I've started seeing my husband's sister at the park in order for our kids to play together. My kids are now in summer vacation. Overall things were looking good and my spirits were up. That was until his mom decides she is done being at her brother's and came back. She brought along her brother's granddaughter to play with my kids. She has done this several times now, brings her over, they play and then she leaves with her. Now a little backstory on the little granddaughter. She's 5, and had been in foster care due to her mother being a crackhead. In these 5 years that girl has been through more than other children. Which is why I am extremely patient with her when she's with my kids, even though she sometimes has a tendency to be bossy and even lash out physically. Since hubby's mom never actually watches her when she brings her over, just retreats to her room, I'm in charge of overseeing them as they play. And I've had to scold that girl when she scratches or smacks. Today was no different. My daughter was in the playroom with her and I was doing dishes. Next thing I know, my daughter comes out with a giant scratch mark in her arm. I saw my mother-in-law go into the room and I assume she's about to scold the girl. Instead, she picks her up and told me in passing, "Oh, your daughter is picking at it to make it worse than it is," and slams the front door and leaves with her. My daughter was crying for her friend and I saw her friend crying for her as she left. The scene of them crying for each other broke my heart. I hugged my daughter. And she told me through sobs, "Grandma doesn't believe me." I told her I believe her and put ointment on her arm. My kids don't know I'm silently fuming at their grandmother. Later that night she returned. The kids said, "Hi," and she ignored them as usual. I went into the laundry room and I asked her, "How's your brother's granddaughter?" She didn't even look up from her phone and said, "She's fine. She's not allowed to come up here anymore." I was like, by all means fine with her getting a time out from my daughter if it means correcting her behavior. So I asked, was it because of the hitting and scratching? This woman looked up like someone had slapped her face and turned to me giving me a cold glare and goes, "My brother's granddaughter wasn't hitting or scratching anyone. Your daughter did it to herself." I talked it over with my brother and we think it's best if his granddaughter doesn't play with your daughter anymore. I honestly didn't talk for a solid minute because I felt my body begin to shake. I then said to her, "Did you see her scratch herself?" "Yes, I did. I was in the kitchen when I heard her scream and my son was the first one there and he said your brother's granddaughter was scratching her when he walked in. You showed up afterwards roughly when I did. How in the world did you see what you claimed you did?" She just silently kept staring at her phone with a smug look. So just couldn't hold in it, you guys. I lost it on her. Believe me, I'm so ashamed, mostly because my kids were one room over. But I couldn't hold in my rage. You can treat me like shit all you want, but don't mess with my children. Did you just lie to my face about your own goddamn grandchild? Do you have any idea how serious it is to claim a child this young is hurting herself? Do you have any idea what a big deal that is? Do you fucking know, or do you just not give a shit about what you say about us? You are literally sitting there telling me you lied about my daughter to have her lose a friend? Why? What is wrong with you? She sat up from her bed shocked that I was daring to come at her like that. I don't talk about you guys. You just told me you told your brother that my daughter hurts herself. I did not. Changing her demeanor, realizing how badly she fucked up, I just told them they weren't getting along. That's not what you just said, and if I called your brother he'd tell me exactly what you just said a minute ago, that my daughter hurts herself and blames other kids. You think I'm blind and I can't tell how you treat my kids and how you hate them. When they say, "Hi," to you, you don't even reply hi back. Is it so goddamn hard to be a fucking decent person? You haven't seen them in months, but as soon as you walk in you don't even acknowledge them. You barely know them. And you won't get the chance anymore because I'm done with you. What happened next was her stammering, saying it's the other way around. How we hate her. And how we should not worry that she'll leave until we leave, then return to her home. Threw one hell of a pity party saying how she loves us and how absolutely horrible I am, and grabbed her shit and left again. My husband got home and when I told him, he called his mom and she gave him an entirely different scenario. Saying I was absolutely disrespectful and how of course he will side with me. I'm absolutely miserable, not just for what I exposed my kids to, but because I'm preparing for fall back. Update. Barely slept last night because my adrenaline was through the roof. Husband got texted from his mom this morning. She wanted her cigarettes she left in her room. My husband says he will give her the cigarettes. He wants to use it as an excuse to talk to her in person. She was there on the porch and right off the bat began angrily telling him, "Well, you finally did it, you kicked me out of my own home." Trying to flip everything around. My husband loudly and publicly in that open porch with neighbors to both sides went verbally on her with his uncle and Mil's best friend inside the house. A few choice words he remembers saying were, "Don't ever lie about my kids, just keep them out of your mouth from now on," and pointing to her best friend's car saying he hopes she enjoys the only company that matters to her because the company and love of her own children and grandchildren means nothing to her. Apparently she called him despicable and went back inside the house. My husband says he was loud, so there's no doubt they heard him in the house, but they never stepped foot outside. Update 2. Surprisingly, Mil's brother answered my text from last night when I asked what Mil said to him about the kids, and says he doesn't know what's going on and that not allowing his granddaughter over was Mil's decision and he didn't even know why. I explained to him what happened and he says he knows his granddaughter is naughty sometimes. I told him that if the girls aren't allowed to be friends anymore because of Mil's ability to make decisions on his behalf, then so be it, but I won't ever allow a grown-ass woman to insult my 7-year-old daughter, calling her a liar and treating her like gum under her shoe. And then the nerve for her to act surprised when I've had enough and stand up for my children. I won't ever apologize for it. He stopped responding after that. I laid it all out, and if he even cares or not, I honestly don't care. I think me and my husband have done more than enough and nothing else needs done but wait for our closing day. And take my babies to a goddamn carnival.